And we're live.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Lisa.
Hey, Josh. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone's having a good Wednesday in the dark Ozarks.
Yes, June 1st. Summer has essentially arrived in the Ozarks, and we have some interesting discussion points for tonight. And what's I think particularly interesting for me is that they are real life in terms of application, because a lot of people do want to investigate.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people are very interested in paranormal investigation and research, but don't have the exposure or the background, or so much of it is, tinted through the TV shows. So
it is, and we get I think an eclectic mix, a good mix of people coming through, the historic locations that we oftentimes are in, who are ranging from ghost hunting show fan to long time and really serious researchers. We get the whole gamut.
We really do. And then people, as well as people who are, just really don't have any exposure to any of that. And then often, they're there for history, and sometimes they get interested in the hauntings as well.
And they do. I think one of the things is sort of a important kicking off point for the Dark Ozarks events, which are of course collaborative between Paranormal Science Lab, which you guys have been doing investigations for a long time, State of the Ozarks, online magazine for the Ozarks. This collaborative work. A huge goal is to raise awareness and to raise money for the historic locations that we're having the opportunity to go into.
Yes.
And so it's very much about preservation and understanding of history and appreciating one's community before it's other things. But we also take the paranormal aspect of it very seriously.
We do. And I think at a bare minimum, you have to look at it as enhancing the contextual understanding of a location and a shared history in a locality. And then if more substantial research, is obtained, then I consider it, we're lucky.
Very much so. It's, and we tend to take it in that order, which I think surprises some people. I feel that there's also a contingent of attendees. Pardon me. The late Memorial Day season pollen decided to attack me on Sunday and hasn't quite stopped, but contingent that has a lot of apprehension about the paranormal.
You do get that at times, yes.
Folks
a lot of that is just stereotypical views that often, because they just have sort of the pop culture references.
And there's also a contingent, I feel, correct me if I'm wrong on this, that anticipate a tour or an investigation to essentially be an October Halloween season spook house, that there's going to be somebody scaring them.
Yeah, there you do get a few people who think it's going to be a jump scare kind of thing, and I assume those are ones that don't watch the TV reality shows as much, but we do get that question occasionally.
Now, I'm also assuming, and I want your thoughts on this, I'm assuming that during the investigations, there are times that you get individuals who are highly skeptical of anything paranormal.
Oh, yeah, you do, particularly at public events, you do. Although, to be perfectly honest, we really haven't had an issue with that over time. And I think it's, I hope it's because of our approach that we don't make quick conclusions that anything is paranormal, which is different from some approaches on tours. So,
Right.
And I've actually had some people who started out as skeptics who then, before the night was over, started saying, well, I might have to at least be open to the possibility. So I consider those victories.
I would too, and I think I think it would be inappropriate, certainly from my own perspective, to demand that anyone adhere to a particular belief. But I think it's important to approach any of these things with a certain open mind and a willingness to set aside presumptions.
Exactly. I think if you're, particularly if you're going to events, you have to approach it that way, I think. And you may walk away and say nothing happened, or wow, something really happened, or maybe they think the tour guides and maybe even us are just full of it. Who knows? But anything in between.
Right. Which, of course, is anyone's prerogative to conclude whatever it is that they wish to conclude.
Mm-hmm.
But I find it really fascinating. The sociocultural aspects of the paranormal, what it does and does not mean, what it could mean, and how it impacts people groups, how it impacts our folklore, how it impacts how we see the world and what that means.
Mm-hmm.
I think all of these are really important elements. It's very easy for quote unquote clinical investigation to get hyper focused on scientific proof.
Right.
And at some point we may have to conclude that the technology, the corporeal technology that we are attempting to use to find non-corporeal, a non-corporeal dimension or reality,
Mm-hmm.
is simply not up to the task, which at the end of the day might be the biggest reason we can't really get the kind of proof that some people would like.
And I think it's a process. And is there foregone conclusive evidence? No.
No.
Even some of the most spectacular things out there are not conclusive. But on the other hand, just because we don't have that ability now doesn't mean that it won't occur in the future either. So the pursuit is worthy in itself, I think.
I agree. I really do. I mean, now obviously, considering our work, we are apparently predisposed to lean this direction.
Generally, people who are investigators are. I have known a handful of people who were really true skeptics who are ardent investigators as well. But those individuals tend to be someone who really can set aside their preconceived notions and biases and just be observers and without taking judgment. And not a lot of people are good at doing that, but there are some.
And I think that contingent or genre, that voice in the research community, is a very important one.
I think it is too. And and honestly, I tend to fall a little more on that side than a lot of investigators, and because I don't jump in with both feet.
It is very easy, and I think on this and then our longer format discussion, which we'll be hosting on Facebook and will be uploaded here on YouTube. Also, be sure to like, share, follow, subscribe, and ring the notification bell here on YouTube, so that you can stay connected with Dark Ozarks. And we appreciate that very much. That it's very easy to go down rabbit trails and
Mhm.
go down these rabbit holes and find yourself in, this mm, Alice in Wonderland place where you're just not sure of anything anymore
Yeah.
within your own head. And that can be a very unhinging experience. And it can also be a very isolative experience.
It can. It can, and I've seen that happen to people. And I've seen that happen to people, and they get out of the field as a result.
Mhm.
So it's something that you have to figure out for yourself where you land on the spectrum and what you're comfortable with.
And also for people who might not be familiar, my day job is journalist and editor-in-chief of State of the Ozarks. Your day job is as a practicing attorney in
Yeah.
Southwest Missouri. So
Yeah.
we're neither one of us, I think it goes with that, largely without saying, can be can go down too many rabbit holes in our regular jobs.
No, no. We are not prone to flights of fancy.
Right. You less so than me. I will just go on record with that. And that's for people who don't know, during the investigations and doing analysis on data, I rely on Lisa to make sure that I stay relatively within the confines. In these situations of like, well, it could be this or it could be this. I'm like, it's the fairies. It is the fae folk. There's no other option. It is the fairies.
That's why we put a bit of corner sometimes.
Yeah. And that's where Lisa's like reeling me back in, saying, is it really? There's we have a lot of research material to go through, or certainly at our disposal tonight. There was a great paper, it's a comparatively preliminary paper written by Megan Altman, Utah State University, 2021. We may be referencing it a number of times, titled Paranormal Investigators Exploring a Positive Social Construct Through Paranormal Belief and Investigation. And in it, she quotes Avinash Patil, who is an executive president of an Indian organization dedicated to fighting superstition. Mr. Patil states, quote, "This is all pseudoscience. Paranormal researchers use scientific terminologies to mislead people. They just cheat people with scientific mumbo jumbo." What are your thoughts on that?
I think that there is always a danger of that. And I've seen, and I have seen this with investigators, that putting too much faith in methods and equipment that don't meet clinical standards and assuming that they do. And you've heard me say it a million times, but it is the shiny bauble effect that
Yeah.
and it happens to audiences of the TV shows. It happens to investigators, and it's very seductive to see meters and equipment, respond and put your faith that really is scientific rigor. So on one hand, he's entirely right. We do not have clinical scientific standards. I don't agree that it's all just a cheat. Are there people that can hoodwink? Sure. It's like anything else, but categorically, no, I don't believe that. And of course, if I said yes, I'd be saying I was as well. So
Right. And these are, there's again, I think that there's something that the clinical analysis, and we'll get into more of that, overlooks, is that it's one thing to be an isolated skeptical clinician running tests with your equipment and saying, right, oh, these silly people out here in the communities are doing crazy things with their EMF meters, and they're full of it.
Right.
But on the ground, when you have individuals who are experiencing things they don't understand, and when it's causing them to question, in some cases, their own safety in their homes,
And that does happen.
when it's causing them to question what are essentially really large quasi-religious philosophical questions about life, and more importantly, what happens after life, and these sorts of things. It is not really the realm of the clinician to be scraping those sociocultural issues away and saying, you know what, it doesn't matter. That's all stupid.
Right. I mean, and that's I think that's sort of the takeaway. I think to really do this adequately and to do a service to the experiences of people going through these experiences, that yes, objectivity as much as possible is a good thing, and certainly if we had clinical standards and clinical standard proof, that would be ideal. But I think you have to be one part dispassionate observer, objective as possible, but also a little bit of a folklorist, philosopher, personal advisor a little bit, and that all of these factors are part and parcel of this. And one day something like quantum physics may explain what happens after death, and then we'll go, okay, now we know. But until then, there's a lot of other questions.
There really are. And I had this idea as I was working on research this afternoon. I'll throw this out here and see what you think. Is a very important role in pre-Western society was essentially the role of the shaman or the medicine man, the individual who stood in the threshold essentially between this life and the other, or this dimension and the others, depending on how you wanted to cut it. And that is a role that has been formally excised from modern day society. You have so many professions that are recognized. Essentially, shaman or medicine man is not one of them. And I really wonder if paranormal investigator, because it does have some aspects of science attached to it, it does have some equipment involved, some things to contextually ground the occupation, so to speak, although in almost all cases it's volunteer. And it's volunteer for us as well. That there's sort of the trappings of modernity to structurally ground it, to give it some sense of space, but that really is an important role that our society does not have a lot of meaningful roles that speak into this situation.
That's true. I mean, that's true. And so in some aspects, especially for residential hauntings and people coming in and saying, I have this happening in my house, by default, you do kind of fulfill some of the same duties or roles that a shaman would have. And again, I think it goes back to, you have to take it very seriously, and you have to be very careful. There's a lot of considerations to be made there, so that you don't overstep bounds, particularly, if you've got people who are vulnerable or perhaps have some psychological issues or something. And so it is a very serious situation, because you're dealing with people. And although society doesn't really label it as a serious pursuit. So, and so I think it's important to view it that way. And that might be a good place to switch over to our longer format.
I like the sound of that. Of course, our longer format discussion on this topic will be available on YouTube soon. But if you'd like to follow along with us live, just head on over to Dark Ozarks on Facebook. We'll be up and ready there shortly, and we'll pretty much pick up where we're leaving off right here.
And thank you all, and we'll be back next week.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Josh.